Bendy and the Dark Revival characters competing in the Hunger Games. Dead inside, Boris finds a canteen full of water. Wally Frank snatches a pair of size. Alice Angel gathers as much food as she can. Heidi runs away from the cornucopia. Porter scares Carly away from the cornucopia. The Keepers runs away from the cornucopia. The projectionist finds a bow, some arrows, and a quiver. Tom, Henry, Barley, and Boris share everything they gathered before running. Wilson takes a sickle from inside the cornucopia. Allison runs away with a lighter and some rope. Betty runs away from the cornucopia. Boris runs away from the cornucopia. The lost ones, Bendy, Nathan, Ark, and Edgar, form a suicide pact, killing themselves. Sammy Lawrence grabs a shovel. All right. Audrey snatches a pair of size. Joey Drew runs away from the cornucopia. Charlie runs into the cornucopia and hides. Tom makes a slingshot. Okay. The Keepers steals from Boris while he isn't looking. Porter and Wally Frank split up to search for resources. Audrey begs for Sammy Lawrence to kill her. He refuses, keeping Audrey alive. The protectionist fishes. Carly defeats Alice Angel in a fight but spares her life. Dead Inside Boris and Heidi start fighting, but Barley runs away as Dead Inside Boris kills Heidi. Wilson receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Henry and Joey Drew split up to search for resources. Allison and Charlie hunt for other tributes, and Boris chases Betty. Audrey tends to the Keeper's wounds. Barley cries himself to sleep. Sammy Lawrence and Betty talk about the tributes still alive. Wilson sees fire but stays hidden. The projectionist climbs a tree to rest. Tom tries to sing himself to sleep. Carly receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Charlie loses sight of where he is. Wally Frank receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Boris tends to his wounds. Henry and Allison sleep in shifts. Joey Drew tries to sing himself to sleep. And Dead Inside Boris dies from hunger. And Alice Angel stabs Boris with a tree branch. Porter is unable to start a fire and sleeps without warmth. Barley receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. The Keepers practices their archery. Wilson sprains his ankle while running away from Alice Angel. Tom makes a slingshot. Wally Frank receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. The projectionist searches for firewood. Betty catches Sammy Lawrence off guard and kills him. They were talking about the tributes still alive before. Henry receives a clean water from an unknown sponsor. Allison defeats Audrey in a fight but spares her life. Carly tries to spear a fish with a trident. Charlie receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Boris receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Porter sees smoke rising in the distance but decides not to investigate. Joey Drew receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Wilson passes out from exhaustion. Alice Angel stays awake all night. Porter, Allison, and Henry sleep in shifts. Audrey lets Barley into her shelter. Carly screams for help. Wally Frank receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Tom loses sight of where he is. Betty and Boris talk about the tributes still alive. Joey Drew quietly hums. The projectionist and the Keepers run into each other and decide to truce for the night. Charlie climbs a tree to rest. Henry injures himself. Carly and the Keepers track down and kill Wally Frank. Charlie travels to higher ground. Audrey goes hunting. Betty receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Barley thinks about home. Porter steals from Boris when he isn't looking. Alice, Angel, Allison, and Wilson start fighting, but Alice runs away as Alice Angel kills Wilson. Tom is unable to convince Joey Drew not to kill him. The projectionist is pricked by thorns while picking berries. Carly receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Barley questions his sanity. Allison climbs a tree to rest. Boris, Joey Drew, Betty, and Henry form a suicide pact, killing themselves. The Keepers tend to Porter's wounds. The projectionist and Alice Angel sleep in shifts. Charlie and Audrey tell each other stories about themselves. Allison falls into a pit and dies. Audrey stuffs a bundle of dry clothing into a backpack before sprinting away. Barley decides not to go to the feast. Charlie gathers as much food into a bag as he can before fleeing. The projectionist takes a staff leaning against the cornucopia. The Keepers decide not to go to the feast. Carly sets an explosive off, killing Porter and Alice Angel. The projectionist steals from Charlie when he isn't looking, and Barley sets off an explosive, killing Audrey and Carly. The keepers accidentally detonate a landmine. And now all these people are dead. Barley stays awake all night. Charlie thinks about winning, and the projectionist questions his sanity. Barley and Charlie split up to search for resources, and the projectionist goes hunting. Alright, the projectionist quietly hums. Charlie destroys Barley's supplies while he's asleep. Charlie receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. The projectionist dies from hunger, and Barley dies from hunger. And so, the winner is Charlie. Okay. Alright then. Well, that's the end of the video.